Hour.
Driving around the world, my feet will tell me where to go. I'm not afraid to step outside and see the world for what it is. No, spending all my time with people that I barely know. You may have thought that I was lost, but all I need is room to grow. I'm coming home to put a flower in your hair. Thought you should know. I'd rather be instead. Sometimes I feel alone, you know.
It's kind of cool to just kind of hang out and chill and relax as we kind of get started here. I'm here with Adam Wood, everybody. Sergeant First Class retired. You were like I was one of your first platoon sergeants. Is that right?
You were my very first one when I got to Fort Bragg, brand new private. I was with you probably, I'd say 6 months to maybe almost a year, and then I had Staff Sergeant Woodley when we went over for the MFO, and then we moved over there, and then kind of changed things. And I think you might have at that point getting ready to move on because I think you were transitioning on to the next duty or whatever you're doing at that point. But yeah, my very first team chief was actually Sergeant Bassett. So
wow!
And then I had Sergeant Schimmel as my squad leader, and I remember the first time we went out, I learned, even though I didn't smoke or dip, that I got to bring dip and smoke out to the field because a disgruntled team leader who's out of dip 3 days into a 2-week field problem is not fun to play with. So I learned very early that I would just buy a whole bunch of dip and just be ready to go, even if I didn't do it, because that would save me a lot of digging.
Who was it? Was it Schimmel?
Schimmel.
Bassett?
So Bassett did it, but I remember Schimmel would come out and he'd be like dipping, and he'd have so much. And he'd like 3 days in, and he's already out of like dip, and we've got like another week. And I remember he was like, "Fuck it, we're gonna do this fighting position. We're gonna dig it to standard." And I'm like, and I'm 6'1", so I'm like, I gotta dig it to my standard. Not cool. So dig it, get everything ready, camouflage it, looks great. And this is before cameras and all that stuff, so I would have taken a nice picture, but all ready to standard, just like the SOP. And then like an hour later, throw it in, we gotta go. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And then the next field problem, I talked with a couple of the guys that have been there and said, listen, bring stuff, ready for the field because it helps them out. And next time he came out, he was like, oh, we're going to dig a fighting position. And I just pulled out a bunch of dip. And I was like, here, you want one? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm good. I don't need any more. And he was like, you know what? We'll just dig a Ranger grave. That'll be it. Just Ranger grave will do it. So I knew very early on in my career that there's certain things you got to do to feed the beast to make sure your life's a little bit easier.
Oh, that's a great story. That's a great story. The guy we're talking about here is Gerald Schimmel, Shimdog. Just a great guy, right? I invited him to be on the show, and he's like, "We don't talk about those days no more, man. I've changed my life now."
Oh man, yeah. He was. I actually, it's funny. There's so many memories to Fort Bragg. I talk about, I've been out couple years and served 20 years, and I always go back to the 5 years at Bragg more than any story, on everything, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, I think at one point I shaved Shimdog's back. I think he was so hairy, he had me trying to shave his back because it was so hairy. But yeah, there were so many, like Sergeant Bassett. I remember the first time I jumped into the field and we had to like undo all the vehicles, they heavy dropped. I remember it was so cold, and literally we finally did everything, and I just must have passed out from just exhaustion being a brand new private. And I just recall I woke up and like we're driving down somewhere, and I'm like, did I pass out? He's like, yeah, you've been out for like 20 minutes. And we finished everything. I must have passed out, and he just actually let me sleep rather than be a dick about it. But he was really cool, and he had a lot of great stories and talked about, his jumps to the Panama and just all of that. And I just remember getting there, and I was like, man, this guy's got a wealth of experience. And back then, nobody had a mustard stain or not a lot of combat patches. You kind of come there, you're like, wow, so you've done some stuff. And then, a few years later, went to Korea right after, we all deployed Charlie Battery and everything into Afghanistan, and we came back, and we were kind of one of the first new groups starting to get combat patches. You saw some of the 101st, and we're getting Korea, and all of a sudden people were like, wow, did brand new, promoted sergeant, and like, okay, well, this guy's seen some shit. So
it's
cool.
An interesting kind of time. Like when you think about the autonomy that we had as a Stinger or an Avenger team out there in the woods, all alone and unafraid. You guys went over to the Sinai, and you did some crazy kind of experimenting out there. You had a certain amount of freedoms that you had that were out there. That was the first time. I guess we're getting way ahead of the story, but tell me about going to MFO. That's an interesting thing. So what we're talking about here is a group of people would leave the 82nd, a battalion of infantry, and go for like 6 months and sit in the middle of this peninsula and just be there. That's really it. That's all you were. You were just there. You didn't have a whole lot to do. You did man some guard posts and things like that. But tell it. So you go over there for like 6 months, and you had North Camp and South Camp and Herb's Beach and Nama Beach.
Oh my God! So you've been there before, right?
Yeah. So I went over there and taught a Jumpmaster refresher for just like a couple of weeks.
Nice.
But I didn't do a whole tour. I just went over there on the tourist trip.
Oh, honestly, it was super cool. And at that point, I just got to brag, and I was probably 19, 20 at that point. Never been anywhere else outside of the U.S. And to say, hey, we're going to Egypt, and I'm like, man, it's gonna be hot. And we got off that plane at midnight, and it was 95 degrees, and it was a dry heat. They say it's a dry heat, but you get there, you get acclimated. But it was cool because we were in South Camp, and North Camp was like, I don't know, you had to piss somebody off to be in North Camp because it was middle of nowhere. South Camp was right on the Sinai, right in the Red Sea, and you could literally had their own little beach, and you could go out there and check it out, and gorgeous. It's also the first time I knew what a nude beach was at 19, because there was a nude beach like literally within tower distance. So Tower 6, if you were on there, you kind of had the binos and you were looking out. But amazing experience to be able to go a chance to see a lot of the we didn't get a chance to see the Holy Land because when we were there, the USS Colt was bombed back then. So they kind of shut a lot of the Holy Land tours down. But, you get a chance to kind of serve and meet these different people from different countries. We work with the Fijians, the Hungarians, the Italians, and just all these groups that you get this experience and this bond over this period. And, we would work guard shift for like 4 weeks straight, where it was like 8 on, 10 off, or whatever it would be, 8 on, 8 off. And then you'd get like a week, which was kind of cool because then you could kind of do some things, maybe get some tours, get a local pass, and kind of check out, places you're never going to see. Like nobody I know has ever touched the pyramids, but I got a chance to do that. And the Army gave me that opportunity. So I loved it. Herb was freaking awesome. He's a legend. Every morning, if you're in Tower 6, because this guy literally is a retired sergeant major, retired, goes back there, and when you get there, he gives you like the pep talk. And he is the most motivated person I've ever met, ever. I mean, he is literally, and he's just little, at that point, he must have been in his, I would say, early 60s, maybe 50. It was hard to tell, but he, not a tall guy, but this guy would literally come out of his little room that he had on post there and would be like motivated, dedicated. He would walk down the steps and he'd swim out to like this island in the middle of nowhere every morning. And if you've never swam in open water, it's hard. And this guy was doing it every day. He was like a ripped, cut, like little Vin Diesel with pep, and it was awesome. I mean, I had a great experience. I got a chance to bond with a lot of great people, to grow close to some of them, and to get a chance to know them. I mean, on those kind of deployments, you kind of get a chance to know your platoon sergeants and squad leaders, because when you're brand new, like you guys and everybody we walk into, it's like they're like gods. You don't talk to them, and you're out of basic training, and you get to brag, and it's that same mentality of strictness, and then you get a chance to get a little bit of humanization of them throughout your deployment. And I think that's a pretty cool thing, because you kind of you earn the respect of your peers, but also your platoon sergeants a little bit by your hard work. And I thought, anybody that gets a chance to go check that out, if you're still in, it's so cool. I mean, if you can get South Camp, it's to see the things that you see, it's just amazing.
It is amazing to me, the like just the scuba diving or snorkeling, and just right there at camp. And I got an opportunity to interface with Herb for a little bit, and I quickly realized that I was outclassed with him. He was in another realm, right? You've met people before that like know their mission and are about it every day. And that was what he was about. It was like when the alarm clock went off and he got up in the morning, it was like he was putting on a show for anybody that would watch.
Yeah. And they didn't have to be like, you didn't have to know anyone was watching. He just lived that existence, and it's cool. I mean, hey, he got to wake up every day and look out at the Red Sea and swim and explore and check that out. I mean, it was cool. So hopefully he's still alive. I'm sure he probably is. He's probably out swimming out there every day.
So I've heard that he has passed a few years back. I don't know any of the details, but that's just a rumor that I heard talking to somebody on here not long ago. I don't even remember who told me that. Tell me, where are you from?
Connecticut.
Oh, Connecticut. There ain't nobody from Connecticut.
That's right. That's the other thing. That's the other thing.
Spell it.
You join the military and nobody's from Connecticut. Everybody, you go to basic training and you go to where, and they're like, wait a minute, aren't you rich? Aren't you from Connecticut, some yuppie? And I'm like, no, because you meet all these guys from Texas, and you meet them from down south, you meet them from California, all over the Midwest. So you meet all these people, and that's the cool thing is, you meet somebody from all these walks of life you've never experienced. So it's such a fun thing to do. And I think Hobbs was the closest person because he was in Massachusetts. So he and I, I got to brag, became very close, and we only live half hour from each other now. So we see each other from time to time. We've grown really close over the years, and a lot of the former guys, Sergeant Burdick from Bragg. I was in his wedding. He came to mine. We've had a lot of great experiences, and it was cool. But yeah, you don't meet a lot of people from Connecticut. So whenever I meet somebody, I'm like, oh my God, you actually came in the military from Connecticut? It's got to be tough for a recruiter in this state. I'll tell you right now.
So Burdick, I want to interview Burdick. That gentleman was like, he would try anything. He was like, do what? Yeah, I'll try it. Let's do it. Yeah. Right?
Yep. He was my team chief for a little bit too. I mean, we became very close. He got out and he's been successful. Went on the GI Bill, got his counting degree, he's doing really great out in California. And, we keep in touch, but yeah, I mean, I keep in touch with those people I went to as a brag. I mean, of any place, it all goes back to the beginning, and, you touch base with where they're at right now, but it's good to see them. And I had such a great foundation growing and being there for the first 5 years.
Look, if there's a place to come into and to get great mentorship and some amazing stories, it's coming to 3rd of the 4th ADA, in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what was it like for you growing up? Well, what year were you born?
80. So I'll be 42 in July. So born in 80, joined the military about 6 months after high school. So I kind of grew up in a middle middle lower class family. My dad was in the Marine Corps. My grandfather, most of my family's, you know, on both sides has been in the military, whether Navy, Marines, um, all of that. So, at that point for me, my parents could afford. We weren't rich Connecticut people, but I know I wanted to do something, and I wanted to go to college and all of that, and went to a recruiting station, and they signed me up, and I remember the guy was like, "Oh, do you want to go airborne?" And I'm like, "Yeah, is that like skydiving?" He's like, "Yeah." And I should have known this dude was a tanker, so absolutely no clue of what that's about. So I was like, "Yeah." And I remember getting to AIT down in Bliss, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, how many of you knuckleheads sign up for airborne school?" And you're all like, "Oh, whoa, whoa, yeah." And then he starts laughing. I look at my friend. I'm like, "What is he laughing about?" And then you get to airborne school and you get to brag, and you realize the only difference between skydiving and being a paratrooper is the fact that there's an airplane and there's a parachute. Everything else is completely different because I did it as a civilian. It's like a beautiful 10-star hotel experience versus staying at the Motel 6 and jumping out and just a sack of potatoes, just getting pummeled on the drop zone and all the gear and stuff. But, you know, it it was good. And, my folks were blue collar people, and I think I identified the most with those kind of people that are hardworking. And I met a lot of those in the military. It's very blue collar for the most part, people that come from similar families, maybe just different upbringings, but overall you kind of have the same mentality. And they typically, come out being very hardworking people. And I think that's what I've always loved about the military is like very similar mindset that come together for a common goal.
That's an interesting thing, right? Becoming part of a team, right, and being in a team. Well, did you do good in the early times in the army? Like, were you a good soldier in basic training and stuff?
Yeah, I tend to think I was a pretty good soldier. It's a bit of a culture shock, going into the basic training, but I think I excelled pretty well. Coming out and just being squared away, and getting to brag. You kind of keep that same basic mentality, so you don't lose a lot of those things that soldiers tend to do when they come out and they go to their duty stations. And you go to some of these ones, you're like 6 months later, they're not staying at parade rest. They don't have any discipline. And back then, you had to shine your boots. So you had a routine, starch uniform, none of this pin on crap. You could at least pick out the people. And I remember, coming to, they go to pick us up at the reception, and people were picking and choosing based on who's the dirt bag by their, their shine boots or uniform. But yeah, I like to think that I was pretty squared away. I mean, I did a lot of the competitions at Bragg, and won a couple of the soldier of the quarter, soldier of the month, and all of that. And that was one of the big things that Burdick and a lot of the other ones like kind of mentored and said, this stuff kind of gets you in front of people, and it helps you set you up, and you get to compete and kind of set yourself aside. So that was fun to do, and I've always kind of excelled at those type of things, like memorizing and doing all these things and just being squared away and going out there. It's nerve wracking, but at the same time, it got to a point where like they didn't have somebody for Soldier of the Month, and they're like, Wood, you're going to Soldier of the Month. Get your gear together. Be in the sergeant major's office in an hour and a half with your squad leader." And you're like, "Okay, all right, sure." But I loved it. I mean, a lot of people probably it's changed quite a bit, I imagine, but I loved having that beginning.
Oh yeah, right. It's got to be a great time. Let me take an opportunity. Look, if you're watching this right now, we're live on formerforce.com. That allows us to do this. We do have a streaming goal tonight. We have a streaming goal tonight. We would appreciate your contributions. If you go to formerforce.com, you can contribute. Our streaming goal tonight is $500, and we would hope that you could help us towards that. We're here with Adam Wood, Sergeant First Class retired, and we appreciate it. I want to show you this video I made. This is kind of a slideshow. We take an opportunity.
Nice.
Let's listen real quick.
All right.
I've got sunshine.
Just
No,
stop.
there you go.
There we go. Okay.
Well, I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, I'm talking about my girl, my girl. I've got so much honey, the bees envy me. I've got sweeter songs, baby, than the birds in the trees. Well, I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, I'm talking about my girl, my girl. I don't need
Your boy looks just like you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's great, man. It's a great story, right? It's an awesome,
Yeah.
Tell everybody, if you don't mind, that's watching with us here a little bit about your book that you wrote, if you don't mind. My preemie adventure, our preemie adventure. I have a copy. I'm a proud owner of it.
I know. That's awesome. Yeah, it's so a couple years ago, about 4 years ago, um, my wife and I had our son, who was born in about 25 weeks, so about 15 weeks earlier than normal, so 3 months, and he weighed 1 pound 4 ounces, and we spent 135 days in the NICU, and very long, hard experience. The hardest thing I've ever dealt with in my life, and that's combat. That's all of it. Anything I've ever been through in my life, that was the hardest point in my life, and it was very difficult and hard and lonely. I got through it with my wife, and my son got home, and it was still a struggle, still a lot of things going on. But part of who I am and I've always been is just trying to be thankful for the things and kind of trying to pay it back and find a purpose for things. And right around the time he came home, I just was getting ready to retire, off of at that point I was in the guard, and kind of needed to be more involved in my family, and I think that was a big part of that with everything going on. But at that point, it also left a gap in my life because I had spent 20 years focused on the military and loved it. And when you get out, a lot of veterans have that gap. They don't know what to do. They go to school, yeah, they do on the GI Bill, but then they kind of lose that passion. They don't have anything in their life. And for me, I just got this all of a sudden idea to write a book, and humor has always gotten me through everything in my life. Especially, I learned that at Bragg and just in general, like it's embrace the suck mentality. It's we all laugh about it together. You deal with it. So I decided to do some research and start kind of writing some ideas, and just wanted to think about creating a book. So I found an illustrator. I started, doing out this book, and I wanted something that somebody that's going through the same situation I was just a year ago could like sit by the isolate and read and say, "There's a dad or a person that's going through this," and you know, make it be a little funny, um, because it's a lot of ups and downs, and be able to look at the positives of what's going on, and be able to understand that your situation is hard and tragic, but there's going to be a good ending to this story. There can be a good ending to this story because it's hard to say. Or if it's somebody that's been home and they want something for them, and I wanted to create this, so I spent about a year putting it together, funding illustrations, working with publishers, and was able to get the book out. Um, and it's been amazing over the last year, since it's almost a year since it's been out. In June, it'll be 1 year officially. We've sold tens of thousands of copies already, worldwide. I've had people in Australia, the UK, Ireland, China, everywhere that's reached out to me, and I kind of created some social media sites very similar to kind of what you're doing here, for humor and kind of bring families together, and also encourage dads and men to get more involved in the experiences, not only in the NICU, but just in general. Because I think that's something that I was very involved. And I think that was a big part of the military, was knowing that I couldn't change the situation and will myself to like take my son's place. But what I could do is educate myself, hold them accountable, talk with the doctors, read to him, hold him, be involved. And that was my way of helping improve the situation. And I think it did help. And right now, as a result of that, I'm actually in the process of putting out 2 more books this year that will be out. One will be based upon very similar, the respiratory to be fun, and one will be a Christmas NICU book for families, and that'll be out before the holidays. And I've got a partner I'm working with right now. We're forming like a small company, and our goal will be to create books and content and stuff for families, mostly children, adolescents, with education and humor about not only the NICU but other things. Kids that have have a heart surgery or have cancer or have certain things that are very unique to them. And we're going to create every year, we're going to create a couple books. And this way families can have their story and something that's their own and that's out there, and kind of build upon that. And my business partner is a neonatologist. He's a doctor who works on these kids, and he found me on social media. He got the book. We did some things, and he and I have been working together for a while, and officially we'll kind of launch all that stuff now. But it's been an amazing first year, and the impact it's helped with a lot of people, just the messages and reviews and people that have reached out. We've donated over 1,000 copies this year to charities and NICUs, and we're going to work this year to send 5,000. My goal by the end of this year worldwide. So we're going to send them to all over the world, NICUs in 12 different countries, and work with charities and organizations to kind of help families a little bit, even if it's just make them smile for a half a day, and to say somebody gets it, because it is a very isolating feeling. So that's been the goal. And it's made the experience that we went through and the hard times all worth it. And I feel that God gave this to me for a reason and said, this is kind of your purpose now. You're a dad and this is your focus, but this is something that you can put your heart into, your passion into for another 20 plus years and help others and give back. And I think it makes everything meaningful that happens. It makes all the difficult times, meaningful. And I can share my story and my thoughts and other people's thoughts, and hopefully, just kind of allow people to get through the NICU a little bit easier in that experience, because, once you go through it, everyone calls you. I've had my niece had a preemie about a year after we did, and she was calling me and asking me, and now everybody that has a premature child, I'm the first person they call because I'm that guy. So it's been a great year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the book does in the next couple of years.
I've never had an opportunity to use the stings before, but I was like, I'm going to make it go. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Drink to you, sir.
To you as well.
I'm very proud of you, very proud to see, what you've, become of yourself. It's very cool to see that, right? It's really neat to watch those that go before you, that show you the way and their successes. And it's neat to see that those that followed you, even if it's, look, our differences was like, not much, just a couple of years. I was just ahead of you, and it wasn't like I was any smarter or better or anybody. I was just in that position. And boy, we had some characters, didn't we? We had,
oh God,
I mean, you already named Bassett, and just look, tell us, dude. Woodley and I about got in a fist fight one time, over basically we were playing like ultimate football out there in the thing, and he was basically encouraging his platoon to like beat up my platoon. And I was like, no, come on, we're not playing anymore. I'm not letting you incite us, because it was violent back then, right? And I had Schimmel and Thorstad, right?
Oh man, Thorstad, I haven't heard that name in forever.
right? We'd been in a battle in a heartbeat if I'd have let them out there, right? Any chance I had. Thorstad, uh, yeah, Schimmel, Bassett, Hubbard.
Hubbard.
You
Yep.
were probably around about this time.
Yeah, and I was telling somebody that like a couple weeks ago about push ball. Like
Yeah.
back then, they haven't had that in years. That's been banned, but back then, people were literally lined up. I remember First Iron Stout was I think it was the last 1 or 2 years they had it before they banned it. And I remember I got out there against the engineers and just got the shit kicked out of me. Like I was expecting just push it, and these dudes were literally like punching you in the ribs and
Oh
kicking
yeah.
the crap out of you. And I
Oh yeah.
was like a $140 back then, so I was, and I of course I had to jump the stinger because I'm over 5'9". So they walk in like, oh, you're jumping the stinger. I'm like, oh what? What's happening? I'm like, yeah, you're jumping that thing. You're good. But yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a lot of fun times. A lot of fun times.
I was watching a video today of a Stinger missile jump pack jump, where not only did they get the guys in the aircraft, and I mean, you literally go flipping and flopping. It's crazy because that thing is bigger than you are, right?
Yeah.
And so it catches the wind and it goes any which way. But the thing that's the most wild to me is how a few times the release mechanism worked, right? We had this release with a tie and you pull this and it pulls that and other. Man, I've seen people kicking that thing, man. Get off me.
It doesn't pull. You got to like pull up and click. And the worst part is if you're jumping it and you don't have somebody who's air defense that's a jump master, and they're like, oh yeah, you're good. And I'm like, look at it, I'm going, are you sure? I'm pretty sure this is not wrong. But you don't want to say that. So you're like looking around for somebody who knows what they're doing, like come over here and fix this. Cause there was one, I think I was on like my second or third, and I just looked at the guy and he was like, I think he was like MI or something. And he's like, yeah, you're good. And I just like looked over at him, and I like looked over at like the whole section, and like he just like came over. I forget who it was. I forget his name now, but he like came over and just adjusted it and flipped it. And he's like, you'll be good. But yeah, the Womack jump pack, man. For those of you who don't know, you don't know. But I seen one guy, he got the rod in his leg after jumping that thing, and he jumped on Sicily, so it wasn't like he jumped on Salerno or some of these other ones. And I felt bad. I actually broke an ankle, ironically. Kid you not. I broke an ankle on like the easiest jump, but I landed on Chicken Road and like snapped my ankle. But it was like at night, so I was trying to like noise discipline. And I remember somebody coming over like, you okay? I'm like, I can't move my I said, I can't get up. They're like, all right, you'll be all right. I'll send somebody over. It was like 3 hours later. They got me there. And then they I think it was actually Schimmel or Thorstadt. They had to throw me in the back of their pickup truck because the medics were just sitting on their sweet ass. And they're like, yeah, it's just a sprain. And then I had to get to the hospital. And they're like, yeah, you broke that thing in like 3 spots. I'm like, okay. And I never had surgery. And next thing you know, I wake up and I'm numb from the waist down. And they had to put a plate and 6 screws in my left ankle. And I was like, what happened? He's like, yeah, you like tore and like you have broken bones. I'm like, yeah, but they said it was a sprain. He's like, yeah, that wasn't a sprain. That was when I landed on the road, I just caught it the right way and just broke it. But yeah, that was not fun. But I mean, I couldn't jump for 6 months after that, but then I came back and everything was good and all that. And I've had no problems since then, you know, but yeah, all the jumps that I've had, that was probably the easiest like jump coming out. Everything went smooth, but when it caught the wind, I just landed on Chicken Road and there was no slipping away at that point. I've had other ones where I landed on a vehicle, an actually medic truck, middle of Sicily, jumped out. It was just Hollywood. Perfect day. Just get some jumps in. Fine. Trying to slip away. The wind's catching. I'm trying to pull, slip away, and just hit the truck, roll off the top, hit the ground, pull the risers, like pop them. And the guy comes out like, you okay? I'm like, I fucking landed on a medic truck in the middle of Sicily. This gigantic drop zone. The one medic truck I hit. Like, what are the odds? And honestly, I didn't even have any broken ribs. I had like bruised ribs. I would have thought I would have broken something on that one. Nothing. So, yeah, there's so many crazy stories. We were on the aircraft. Remember when the jump master got decapitated?
Oh, so you were on the aircraft when
I
something
was
like
on
that
the
happened?
other
Okay.
aircraft when it happened,
Okay.
and there was another guy that was in. I think it was Alpha Battery or one of them, but he was the next jumper, like the number one jumper when happened, and when he got pulled out and the head, he was right there. And I remember hearing about that guy like terminated jump status right after that. He's like, I'm done. And I remember they were like, we're not jumping, and I'm like, what? It was like a perfect day, and they said, yeah, we have to land on the drop zone, and I'm like, what's going on? And then they had to look for like the head and the body and stuff. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was like maybe a year or two after I was there, something like that. But and then they changed the your reserve where you have to pull up as a result of that. That was coming off of that one.
Yeah. I very much remember all that. Very
Mm-hmm.
much. It was sad times. We went through a
Yeah.
rash of people that the modified improved reserve parachute system found a way to open on its own.
Ugh.
And he was in the door, and when it opened, it basically, when his reserve parachute opened, it pulled his whole body out, and his head and helmet got caught, and didn't make the trip, and stayed
Yeah.
inside the aircraft. It was not a good thing. It was not a good thing. What you broke your ankle on a jump. The mentality, the thought process, the understanding. Right, you were willing to go anywhere in the world within 18 hours with a missile strapped to you and jump out. It didn't matter where they said to
Yeah.
go. We were going. There was none of this like, hold on, where are we going again? Let me
Yeah.
check if I'm allowed to go. Right? How long is it going to take us to get there? Let me check. There's none of that. We wrote a check and said we will jump a Stinger missile jump back into wherever you turn that green light on at, and I'm going to go find the highest hill I can find, and I'm going to stand on it, and I'm going to shoot
Mm-hmm.
down some kind of enemy airplane, right? We were
Yep.
willing to do that big time, and probably still willing to, right? Probably like, suit me up, put me in, coach.
I mean, we'd be good right now with everything in Ukraine. We'd be like basically they would love us if we showed up there. Because I remember, I think they were. What is the life expectancy after you shoot off the missile? Was like 8 or 15 seconds or whatever it was. Like if you don't kill that aircraft, you got a trail directly where you're at. They're gonna light your ass up. So yeah, it was definitely crazy. I remember when I joined and my parents were like, "Oh, what'd you choose?" And I'm like, I'm gonna go airborne. I'm like, cool. And I'm like, I'm gonna be air defense and I'm gonna shoot down the enemy with missiles. And they're gonna be like, what? They're giving you a missile to shoot? Like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. And oh man, that was interesting. But yeah, we got a chance. I don't think there's been anybody recently that's been able to shoot down an aircraft with that though. That's kind of been the only thing with air defense is like they haven't had that Top Gun moment where like they shot down like a MiG or something like that. But
Right,
maybe
right.
soon. Who knows? I know that they're reactivating a lot of these air defense units and getting them retrained up from a lot of people I followed.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Was there ever a time in your career where you had to pull the trigger, or you had to duck from bullets, or you helped somebody that was in danger? Was there a time like that?
Yeah, in Afghanistan, there was definitely times like that where you're getting shot at and different things. Especially we went there. Um, we went 6 months. Actually, we probably would have been there sooner after 9/11, but there was all those aircraft. Like we couldn't get an aircraft. Like you think about the supply chain now, we were just trying to get C-17s and aircraft to go over, and we kept getting delayed for almost a month. I remember we had all of our stuff ready to go, living out of a suitcase for a month, and yeah, we had some stuff. I had to call in a UXO for and everything. We were outside of Bagram, and they had fish beds all out there. They had all these Russian aircraft that were out there, and I still got pictures. And there was an area that they said, "Yeah, you're good to dig." So we're building this fighting position, and we're building up with the sandbags, doing all the stuff, and so you're taking turns with your little ass shovel, and then the person's pulling security. And I remember at that point I was a team leader, a team chief, and all of a sudden this little uh, landmine fell off my gunner's shovel, and he was just like, "Mine!" calls it out. Luckily, it didn't go off. We called in a UXO, marked it off, and there was this rock quarry. I kid you not, probably 20 meters to our right of the position, kind of went down. And this is what these bomb people are. I mean, they come out there and they don't care. Uh he looks at it, goes, "Oh yeah." He grabs it and chucks it into the quarry and detonates. And I'm like, "Aren't you supposed to like dispose of it some other way?" He's like, "Nah, it'd be all right." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" But yeah, I mean, we had incidents like that. We had a lot of where it was like landmine central. I feel like every time we went outside the wire anywhere, you could see literally landmines and toe poppers right outside, and you all you have is this little bit of wire. I mean, literally, if you're not paying attention, you could walk over and step on it and detonate it. I mean, there were so many landmines, but yeah, we had a lot of experiences there. We had people that would come in and detonate. There was at one point they had a little girl. We were walking up to the gate, probably 100 meters or so, and they sent this little girl with a grenade with the pin pulled, and they cut her, so she was bleeding, and there's these two, I think, Brits running the gate at that point. They had this British unit, and they were at the front gates as well, and they went to go check this girl out, and then all of a sudden you hear grenade, and that was it. And his thing pops off, and you kind of drop down. And that was probably about a month and a half in when we were there. But we did a lot of more in Afghanistan, a lot more guard duty, a lot more pulling security because we had the 50 cal, so we had the night vision, and you could see a lot more. And we found out that in Afghanistan, apparently the porcupine is like the apex predator, because we literally would, I kid you not, so we would sit out there, and for the whole 6 months, the entire company had this like rumor about this porcupine, because I wish we had it on tape. We would watch. I remember watching out there, and you get so bored, so you're scanning, and we were co-located with the Romanians, the Scorpion Brigade, and we're kind of going back and forth. You're zooming in. Oh, look, there's a rat. You're like, okay, cool. And all of a sudden, I see what I thought was a giant bush moving. So then I'm calling it in. I'm like, hey, I've got movement, and this thing's huge. So I'm like, it's got to be somebody camouflaged. So the Romanians were literally co-located right next to us. So I just kind of tapped and said, "Hey, eyes on," and he's got a scope out, and he's kind of like looking in. And I see these 3 coyotes approach this bush now, and I'm like, "What the hell's going on here?" And all of a sudden, this bush moves and hits the coyotes, and they go running away. And you see this thing start to waddle away, and it's a gigantic porcupine. This thing it was so big, it was bigger than a Humvee tire. And for 6 months, we would spot it, and we would go to the talk, and there would be like a little chart on the side of like where they spotted what position. And about just about a month before we're getting ready to leave, I remember it was starting to finally came into past the wire, and I'm like, I'm gonna get this son bitch. And all of a sudden, I had I saw it coming in the wire, so it was like middle of the day, and I'm running. I would see it, so I pick up the pickaxe and shovel. I'm like, I'm gonna kill this thing. If I'm gonna kill something right now, I was like, this is gonna be a good story. And I start running like toward this thing, and then all of a sudden, my gunner, Shanahan, goes, "Hey, are you sure they can't like shoot their quills at you?" And like I stopped mid, and I was like, "Man, I don't have Google. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, it's pre-Google." So I was like, good point. So I just kind of backed off, because I don't know if this thing could shoot its quills out. I mean, I'm not that educated, so maybe they can. And I definitely couldn't get permission to fire at it. Like, you got to call that in. Like, you shot at it. But if I said, a porcupine came in position, attacked us, that might sound better. But yeah, that thing just kind of waddled off. But yeah, what could have been. But it was an interesting experience just to go there and to kind of be kind of in the beginning of things. You kind of see where it happens, and now you look at what it's become, and it's kind of like, man, it's to see that journey and how it ended is just like breaks your heart to see that.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a lot of blood and treasure and tears that
Yep.
were spent over there trying to look to help something that maybe we did, maybe we didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe we made a difference somewhere, maybe we didn't. What did your career look like? What was it like becoming a sergeant? Do you remember being responsible for someone else and taking on responsibility?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it. I think I always kind of learned from, you know, those before me and, yourself and Sergeant Woodley and Sergeant Folks and Schimmel and all these kind of guys and First Sergeant Stout at that point, who was the airborne messiah. So everything, started and ended with him. And then, at that point, Captain Boyer, who was a fantastic first captain and very personable person. You know, you got to learn from them, and you learn to take care of your men. And it's always been my philosophy. I manage people now, and I always keep the same philosophy: is you take care of your guys, you make sure that they're happy, they're fed, they're good to go. And when you have that mentality, and people know that you'll go to bat for them, they'll chase you into battle. They'll be right there with you side by side. And I've always kept that same mentality of training, 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 and mentoring and mentoring and mentoring, and making sure that the next generation is ready to go and the next generation is educated and can lead people. And it's a hard lineage to kind of live up to, because you kind of have that. But I'm glad, because when I went to other units, it was just such a scumbag. There's some units, you just know it. It's like, you are a bunch of scumbags. You are fat, out of shape scumbags who can't run. I mean, I didn't realize that apparently the Army doesn't require you across the board to not do road marches where you're doing 10 or 13-mile road marches to 2 hours or less, or 2.5 hours per squad. When I got to, 2nd Infantry Division, right after Bragg, that was my first one in Korea, like, you're in the field a lot, but like the PT mentality is like way low. And you get to some of these other units and you're like, okay, that's all we're going to do. And at Bragg, I remember, being attached to each other, with our, and having gas masks and rucking outside of Bragg in these trails for 2 or 3 or 4 miles with all this gear on in 100-degree weather. So it prepares you, because you get there and you don't know any better. So you get to other units and you just look at them and you just like look ashamed, and they look at your wings. You're like, you're not paratrooper land anymore. I'm like, it's clear, fat fuck. I got it. All right. So, I mean, even the PT standard. I mean, we used to have the PT standard. You are on the Fat Boy program, not because you didn't pass, because you didn't get like a 270 or above. The high and tight, all the standards that Bragg had. And then you get to other units, you realize that like Bragg is a completely different animal in itself. It is like, it might as well be its own branch, in my opinion, because it's just the mindset of everybody that's there. The SF, all the people that are on Bragg is a completely different animal than anywhere else. And Vietnam is also a completely different animal than anybody else.
When people call Bragg the center of the universe, it seems to be the center of a different mentality, right? When I step on Ardennes Street, I stand a little taller, and if it's during PT hours, I'm running, right? I'm not walking.
I would never be thinking about running on there with headphones on now and a tank top. Somebody smack the shit out of you.
It'd be interesting to see, what's changed, now. Now they've they've continued to close the roads. I threatened last time I was there to go run on Ardennes, but I didn't. I was too lazy.
Yeah. So when was the last time you were there?
Oh, a month or so ago.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. We had a mini reunion.
I saw
there.
that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So August 4th through the 7th in Nashville. We're having the 3rd of the 4th reunion. So please, if you can, plan on coming.
That'd be awesome.
We've got lots of folks signing up already, and my little band, Boat Ramp Bound, we're going to play Friday night and do a little karaoke. I saw you're a karaoke star, right? I saw that. So you're going to have to sing, and and we're just going to hang out right there. It's kind of like a hotel with a exterior doors and a balcony and a courtyard. So we'll kind of take over the
Nice.
place, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it'll be like drag your cooler to the center of the bonfire, and I'll bring my cameras and stuff, and maybe we'll do some interviews and try to capture some stories and just hang out and if nothing else, record the party and have a good time. It's more and more and more the shared experiences that we have with our buddies in the Army and airborne buddies and high school buddies, and it's those moments and experiences during the tough times of our lives that make us enjoy the good times, right?
That's right. Yeah, you appreciate everything you have. I mean, you know what it's like to have be in these hard situations and train hard and do all that. So you kind of appreciate everything. I mean, I didn't know what a shower was, that you could shower in the field till you get through these units. You're like, oh wait, you shower? Like how do no 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 no. I remember standing out in NTC and Burdick, literally, like I'm standing buck naked in the middle of NTC out in the middle of nowhere and dumping cold water on top of me just to give me an impromptu shower after 2.5 weeks of being out there. And these engineers like, no, no, we go back, we shower, we go to the PX. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? This is weird to me. Like you do that? You're okay to do that? Yeah, like definitely not. But yeah, you appreciate everything, and it's fun. Like I wish more of this generation could have the same experiences that you and I had, and kind of it's a different army. I hate to say that, but as I get closer to the end of my career, it is such a different mentality of how everything's done and just how it's changed so much and what you can and can't do and what you've been able to do before. And I'm just glad that I got out at that point and still have a lot of the great memories and things like that. But yeah, you'd never be able to do half the stuff, especially when the smoking sessions at Bragg. You'd never be able to do that now. No.
I'm telling you, you were there in a blessed time. The late
Yes.
'90s, early 2000s.
Hmm.
So tell me about, brag on your family a little bit. Tell me about your beautiful wife and your beautiful son. Tell me about all that.
I can't brag enough. I mean, my wife is truly amazing. We've been together for 9 years. We've been married for 6 years. She's an amazing woman. She's really smart, way smarter than me. Um, and she's just a really has been a really good person. Has just been the sweetest person in the world and the most supportive person. I couldn't pick a better person. And my son is literally the reason why I live. And I know everyone says that, but it is. I mean, he's such an amazing kid. He's so smart and funny. He's got such a personality now, and I love him to death. And it just gives me a good feeling to have that be the next focus in my life and be able to spend that time with him, because I know a lot of the guys and gals that are in the military, it's so hard to balance that family life, and you kind of see those struggles and the back and forth. And I'm blessed to not be in those situations anymore where I can remain focused on that. And but at the same time, I can bring what I've learned in the military and those kind of values and skill sets and how I look at life and teach him through that, because I got a lot of great mentors along the way, and I think that will definitely do well for me. But my wife's, like I said, doing great, and I know you talked about it. She is celebrating almost 7 months getting her kidney transplant. So yeah, she had a kidney transplant back late July, early August, um, at 36 years old, so a bit young for that. But it's given her new life. I mean, she's a different person, her energy, and we really got a second chance to do that, and we're beyond thankful. So um, God has really blessed our family while He's given us, things to overcome. We've gotten through them, and I think we're better off for it. And it's allowed us to kind of be thankful and want to give back. And that's really where my focus is for me is giving back and being appreciative of what I have and what's given to me, because it isn't, nothing's promised. Tomorrow could be a different day, but I couldn't do anything I do without them. And it's so amazing to have them in my life and to be a dad at this point. Of all the things I've done, being a dad has been the best one. And I never thought, years ago that I would want to be a dad or that was my thing. Now that I am one, like, I'm all in. The good thing about it is I tell guys, like, you could be a tough, tattooed, burly, big dude, a badass, and be a softie too. They're not mutually exclusive. And I think that's the big
Amen.
thing, is that a lot of guys just kind of, well, it's not my thing. Get involved. That's the thing you see now, is like this generation of kids that are growing up don't have that figure, that parents and that dad that is in their life and giving them the mentorship they need. But you can also nurture them and let them know that you're going to be there. And I think that's a big part of kind of what I do with him, is I try to set those boundaries. I'm always going to be the stern voice. My wife's always going to be the sweet, good cop. And I'm okay with that. As long as we know our roles, I'm bad cop. And every now and then she lets me be good cop. But overall, I'm blessed. And I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit about them, because they are the reason why I do everything in this life.
Amen. Joe Benson, my
Amen.
partner, says congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, and of course Kirkendall, he says we got to do a reenactment of the Cattleman's incident at the reunion. I don't know if you know about the Cattleman's incident.
I don't. I think that might have been a little before my time, but I've heard stories.
It was. Yeah, we took over the Cattleman's Air restaurant and did the time warnings and jump commands on top of the tables and jumped off. And but the big issue was one of the S3 captains stole the security guard's horse and went riding around on the horse. And the security guard was threatening to shoot him and stuff. It was pretty bad.
Listen, you can't get a bunch of drunk paratroopers together and expect things not to happen like that. I mean, what people have not gotten drunk and done door commands or sang cadence? I mean, that's the military experience. If you haven't had a story or two where you're drunk at Bragg or someplace with your buddies and something crazy happens, you're not living. You don't even have to be drinking, but just in that environment. But yeah, when we got back from Iraq, we got so drunk because you get back from deployment, you've got the tolerance of a 3-year-old girl, and we came back. We tried to hotwire the bulldozer on Fort Hood. We were so drunk. Thankfully, none of us knew how to hotwire, but if we did, there'd be an incident. We would definitely be on a report that night.
You definitely made the bladder report.
Yep.
Oh my gosh! What? Tell me some mentors of yours. Who was it that shaped you? I know I've asked that question in a couple ways, but is there somebody like that, like you felt like took you under their wing and said, "Hey, here's how it goes"?
I've had a few. So I've, at Bragg, I think I had, to a degree, I had Schimmel, Thorstadt, at that point, Sergeant Burdick was a big impact as well, because he was very, at that point, like Dudley Do Right, like Mr. Just got out of jump master school. He was so squared away, so he really was hard on me, but at the same time, we became really great friends. Um, not only down there but afterwards. Sergeant Woodley, I mean, I had a lot of respect for him. Like he commanded that respect, but at the same time, he would kick the shit out of somebody who talked shit about his platoon. That was the mentality. You know, and then I've had a couple outside. I had a Sergeant Marini when I was in Korea, and Sergeant Manuel. They were like great mentors coming out of there. They were both from Bragg. And they were really good about kind of transitioning and keeping me under their wing and kind of mentoring me. But I think the ones that were very hard on me, I honestly respect a lot more, because they didn't try to be my friend when where a lot of guys try to be, a soldier's friend all the time, and you've got to find that balance. And you get to a point where eventually you have that friendship, but sometimes guys would just be like, "Oh, I'm your friend, and I can, you can come to me." But with them, I knew what to do. I knew the expectations, and I respected them a lot more for it. And when they gave me a "Hey, great job," or they patted me on the back in their own way, it felt a lot better than somebody else just telling you, "Hey, you did a great job," because you knew you earned that, that acknowledgement, that nod, that smile. And I know it's crazy, but yeah, they were some good people. I've had a lot of others in my career, but you know, I always go back to Bragg. It was always a lot of good people and a lot of good friends that helped me along the way and just kept me on the a good path, and were good peers and just had my back and I could count on them. And that's a big part of it, is that I knew I could get into battle with, whatever I needed to do, and they'd have my back and I'd have theirs. So I was always appreciative of that. And it's always served me well. But I always try to keep that same philosophy that we had as paratroopers, and keeping the standards high and pushing to have the highest standards, even when the standards seem very low. Um, and even 20 years later, as I'm getting ready to retire, they always say the same thing. It ain't brag. They look at the combat patch, you look at the wings, like it ain't brag, but hey, it should be in my philosophy, in my eyes.
Hey, there's some high standards that we all lived up to, that shaped our lives there in Third of the Fourth. That's for sure.
Yep.
So tell me about your next Army life. You changed MOSs at some point, right?
Yeah. So I actually went to all things signal. So when I went to I got just gotten back from deployment too. I was getting ready to hit my 4-year mark, getting ready to get out. And I thought they were going to throw the kitchen sink at me. Typically, you hear all these stories like, "Oh, they'll throw these schools." This guy didn't do shit. I was just like, "Do you even want me to stay in?" And I actually tried to go to Hawaii to deploy with Hobbs, because Hobbs had just went to Hawaii and he was my best friend at that point, and go over with them and deploy to Iraq, and couldn't even get Hawaii, couldn't get a school, couldn't get anything. So then I was like, "Well, maybe it's time for me to get out." And he's like, "Well, what about reclassing?" Because he couldn't give me duty station, couldn't give me anything. And I was like, "All right, well, then I'm gonna get out and get on and whatever." And so I reclassed to signal, and there was like a $25,000 bonus at that point. And reclassed, went to that, and spent the next number of years there. The good thing is, when I got to, ironically, getting to signal school, I had done the ASIPs and loaded inside the Avenger weapon system so many times. They didn't even have the ASIPs at the signal school. They had like the old Charlies. So when I got there, I was like, "So where's the ASIPs?" They're like, "Oh, we don't have a ton of those." I'm like, "You're the home of signal and you don't have the ASIPs," which I've had for 4 years from a brand new private. And at that point, I'm sure they didn't just get there. So I actually was a leg up on a lot of things. And, I did that, went to Korea. We worked there for a bit. Worked on triple nickel. We spent a lot of time in the field in Korea, especially if you're up in Second Infantry Division, up by the DMZ. We were up at Camp Red Cloud. You're basically living in the field. Like, you come out for like 2 weeks, you're back in the field for a month. Same thing with like a lot of people that go to Germany. I hear the same thing. They like live in the field and they come out, get drunk, and they're back in the field again. And then went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona for a couple years. That was fun, but again, it was like nothing is out there. You literally went there, got a little bit of trouble in Mexico. Not gonna lie, had a few incidents that thankfully never crossed the lines and got back to anybody. But then I got in 2008. It was kind of that shit or get off the pot mentality, like get out or stay in. And at that point, I kind of just said, I've got a couple combat tours. I've done a bunch of stuff. I kind of want to go to school, and I really joined for that, but I've gotten a lot of great experiences. And honestly, I'd gone through a part where I'd kind of been disenfranchised with the military. I had some bad leaders and some bad situations where I got to the point where I was like, this is not the military that I signed up for. You get some leaders that don't have people's backs, that don't take care of their people, and you get frustrated with that. And kind of that was the point where I got back from Iraq. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to get out. Ended up coming into the guard here because I still needed to fill that gap. Worked with the 102nd Infantry here in Connecticut for uh, 7 years. It was great. I got to run their commo shop, a lot of field time. It was, I don't want to say brag-esque, but in comparison for the guard, it was pretty high speed, I will say. They did a lot of high speed stuff. They spent a lot more time in the field than your average 1 week in a month. That was all bullshit. 2 weeks a year. The good thing is, you know, I don't want to say the bad thing, is I had to go to NTC again a couple of times. So everybody's like, well, who's been to NTC? And I like slowly raised my hand and I'm like, none of you fuckers have been to NTC or not NTC, a JRTC. And they're like, yeah, nobody's been to JRTC. One person who was a colonel at that point had been to JRTC. And I was like, so none of you know. And so I had to go back to that whole hole of a sweatbox for 2 more times. And that was try to get a National Guard unit acclimated and try to get them out in the field and get them up to active duty standards in that short of time is pretty difficult. But we did it. I had a lot of fun times with those guys. And then the last year or two, I'm not gonna lie, I went to a Pogue unit. It was really chill. But it was what I needed at that point before I got ready to retire because I just had so much going on. And thankfully I went to that unit and they were allowing me to be there for my son. And just, we were at the hospital at that point a lot. And so that was good because if I had been with the 102nd, that op tempo would have been so hard for me to kind of do what I need to do at home. But met a lot of good people, here. I got a lot of great soldiers that are, we're good friends to this day. They, got the same mentality. And it always goes back to you attract a certain mentality of people and then you become that clique of mentality and then it kind of infects everybody else. And I think that's what we did a lot in our thing. We had our signal platoon, but we were a close knit group, but we earned the respect of the infantry, which is hard to do. We know we're in the Bastard Brigade. We had the Bastard Brigade coin, and you got to, even with that, with brag, you got to earn that respect. Even the infantry there's that hierarchy. But I think we did a good job, and I think they respected our hard work. And a lot of them now are sergeant first classes themselves. They moved up from private, and they've been advanced, and it's good to see these guys advance in their careers and be able to lead other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a soldier that you're particularly proud of that you maybe helped along the way that you watched that is a star of yours?
So yes, so there's a couple of them that were really good. So I had a soldier, Demetrius Macias, who was a kid from Chicago, and he had that certain mentality, and he really adapted well to the job and took direction and was very motivated, and got to see him really advance. And there's a number Sergeant First Class Tyler now and others that just came in as specialists or privates, and you just kind of mentored them. And then there's others that they were what they were. But I think those two guys were especially, if I called them now and said, hey, I need to run into battle, they're like, I'm strapped, clapped, ready to go. And when you have that kind of person that you can call on, does hell or high water, that served with you or served under you, that's a good thing. I mean, that means that they've got that loyalty and they're ready to go. So I think those two guys are good, but it's always been good I've always tried to keep a good tight knit platoon of guys and gals that kind of understood the mission and, would do what needs to be done and understand that we have a higher standard than what the average person's going to have.
How many jumps did you end up with?
I was at 61 when I left, which
wow.
I was getting a bunch of jumps, and the Black Hawk jumps and the Chinook jumps were still my favorite because we all know why. That's the softest you're ever gonna get. But yeah, I got a lot of jumps, and at one point I was like, do I go to jump master school I think if I had stayed at Bragg and been there, I would have done all that. And I think that's one of those kind of regrets that you kind of look back and say, I wish I had done some of these things that you wanted to do. But for whatever the reason, things just played out differently. But yeah, I had a lot of fun on most of my jumps other than the two that I mentioned. I mean, nothing's better than Mass Attack at night because you just tell that story, you show somebody a video and they're like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, I did that for a living. And I have to think back now, almost 15 years later or more, I can't believe that's what I used to do when I was 18 or 19 or 20 years old, is jump out of airplanes with 700 or 800 people at night.
Yeah. We would empty a C-141 over Sicily drop zone in one pass, and it was get out that door as fast as you can. And we would put the biggest, baddest guy all the way at the front and call him a stick pusher.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, get out the door. Not that we pushed, nobody had to push anybody.
Yeah, nobody pushed.
Nobody
Get your
pushed
sky
anybody.
sharks out there. You got to watch out for the sky sharks. Now, here's my question. Did you at that point, because it was like late 90s, early 2000s, did you do the with the cherries, their first jump, did you put the pies in the pocket?
No. What are you talking about?
You never had that? They put pies, like those pies from like the truck stop that you get inside my cargo pockets when I jumped on a cherry pie. I forget who it was now at this point, but like, oh, it's your first jump, and they put it on. I was getting on. I was like, okay, and I was like, everyone do this? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, and I've heard people that have said they've done it, and I've heard the people that said that they haven't done it. I've gotten the key, like find the keys to the drop zone, area J, grid squares, all those funny things that you do, and you're like, you're fucking with me. But I will tell you the funniest story. This is a true Woodley story. This is a total Woodley story. I remember that Sergeant Woodley once made me carry around a drip pan for an entire weekend. He literally, there was something I was supposed to do at the motor pool and I didn't do. And he like dug into me. And actually, no. What it was Sergeant Folks asked me for a stack of papers, and Sergeant Woodley had told me, hold on to these papers. Now I'm a PFC, and I'm like, okay, fine. So Sergeant Folks says, give me the papers. So I gave him the papers. The next hour, he's like, where's the papers? And I'm like, well, I gave them to Sergeant Folks, who asked for them, who outranks me. And he's like, I told you to hold on to the papers. So he made me carry a drip pan around for an entire weekend. I walked into the Blockbuster Video outside on Fayetteville, literally carrying a drip pan with me while I picked out a video on a Friday night because I was so scared of him seeing me without the drip pan. That is a true story. And I've seen guys carrying around shovels and other things out there. So I know I'm the only one, but that's what it was like. Those are the things that happened. I actually dug when I broke my ankle. I was in a cast. I put the NBC boot over my boot with Toomer. It was me and Specialist Toomer and Bivens, and we literally dug a fighting position with a cast on, not a walking boot, a cast on when I went out to the field.
Oh wow, that's crazy, right? Yeah. It was a get it done mentality, and it was okay to screw with your buddy. It was okay to put cherry pies in their pants. It was, they drugged me out. I had a big cherry party. They hung me out the window, in Wisconsin.
Did they?
Yeah. They so we're up there in Wisconsin. And I'm private marshal. I don't even think I even had an E2 stripes yet.
Oh, not even the mosquito wings.
Yeah. And I'm laid up in my sleeping bag, and all of a sudden my sleeping bag gets zipped all the way up. And somebody grabs my feet and starts tying a rope and wrapping 100-mile-an-hour tape around it, right? And all of a sudden I hear, get ready, outboard personnel, stand up, and they rolled me out of the bunk. And I'm like, boom, and I'm hitting the ground. And I'm in my sleeping bag. And about 6 of them picked me up. And Matthews, who was like my kind of buddy, he was right up there by my face. And again, I'm, like you talking about a soaking wet, 100 145, 150 pounds. And they dragged me over to we were on the second floor of these World War II barracks in Wisconsin. And they take me over there, and Kuhn was involved, and a lot of the Stinger guys. And so they like go through all the jump commands in Time Warning, sound off for equipment check. They beat the shit out of me, right? Okay. And then they hung me over the edge and dropped me off, and I'm dangling. I'm like way up there. And they let me down slowly. And on the bottom floor, the MPs were living, right? We were the ADA. The MPs were right below us. They're looking at us, looking around, thought it was funny. And finally, they made me say, like, I'm a toe jumper. Set me free, cut me free. And they lowered me down to about this far. My head's right above the stove. And they let me down. I fell down. And then somebody grabbed me and dragged me over to the ditch. They said I didn't, eject the canopy release assembly to recover from the drag. They said they dragged me into the ditch. And then finally Matthews came down and helped me get out of the ditch and helped me back upstairs. When I got upstairs to the second floor, my squad leader peeked his head out of the door. He goes, "Marshall, you okay?" I said, "Yes, Sergeant." He said, "Okay, good night." And that was my cherry party, man. That was a long time ago. That was winter of 1987.
Woo!
You were 7 years old.
I was 7 years old. So you had you definitely served a lot of time before I even got there. But that still was happening. I've heard those stories about people, being hung out the window, and it's funny riding buffers down the hallway, drunk as shit. It's honestly like people ask me, like, what's it like? I'm like, imagine on the weekends, it's like Animal House, but with no girls and a bunch of drunk guys in the barracks playing asshole and drinking games and case races, like literally walking up and down, and everybody's got their door open on Friday night, just pounding beers. And then they haven't even gone out to the club or go out to the bars yet. It's like 8:30. They're like pissed drunk. And it's just a different time. Like you don't have that happen anymore. I've never been to another place since then that has partied and trained as hard as at Bragg, and it's so much fun. But there's a lot of things they do to screw it privates. A lot of things. Now the kids got it easy. They don't have to do as much.
we had to sort through who was screwing with us and who was telling us the truth and who was just trying to watch us bump our head into the wall. Right? They sent me a. Go ahead.
You know who the chief was? I'm trying to remember his name now. He had the mustache. The chief warrant officer that ran the motor pool.
Yeah. I know you're talking. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm trying to play. I remember they used to do a Specialist Jordan was his one of his guys. Remember watching guys with the exhaust samples, and they had the big trash bags. Oh man,
I'll never forget the day that like a stand-in platoon sergeant, not a real platoon sergeant, but like somebody who was like standing in, like a staff sergeant, that wasn't sitting in the seat, took his platoon leader and had his platoon leader get a sample and take it to the battalion command sergeant major.
Oh my God.
Oh, I think that platoon sergeant didn't get friggin' lit up, right? It's like, how dare you, oh my gosh. Yeah.
I will say though, we had some pretty cool lieutenants when I first got there, a couple of them. Was it Lieutenant Sammy? I can't remember his last name now. He was a country ass boy, big ass country boy. I remember his first name was Sammy. He was like, "Cuckoo." He was definitely from heavy South.
But I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to remember his last name now, but I remember Sammy. He was one of the coolest dudes in the world, and like he definitely was one of those guys that like you could tell when he partied, but he could kick the shit out of anybody if he wanted to. But just a really good guy. And
last I heard from him, he was making candles in South Carolina, owned a candle company or something. Yeah, I can't think of his name right now, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Exactly, because I remember Sammy. He was like very brand new lieutenant. I was probably like a specialist or PFC at that point. But candles, really?
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. Yeah, I would love
And
to. There's so many people from back then that I would love to get in touch with and remember and get that's part of what all this is about.
yeah,
Is reconnect. Look at you and I reconnecting after so many
yeah,
years, right? It's so awesome to be able to catch up and to make these memories and to do this. This is what all this is about. That's what it's about, is making and recording our oral history so that one of these days your son is going to look around and say, hey, what did my dad do? What's going on? My dad was in the 82nd. What does that mean? What does it, but now he can listen to this and he can go, yeah, it means you ride a buffer and you get drunk on the weekends.
that's true.
But it also means the willingness to go stand at the forefront of your country's need at any time, right? If somebody needed to call somebody, we were one of the first options out the gate. We're going to make a lot of noise, and it was not going to be pretty when it was over if we showed up.
That's right.
But we were there and we were ready to go. And you were one of the teammates and team members that made it happen, and time again. And those bonds and memories, and you talk about carrying a drip pan around for a weekend. I mean, look, talk about being brainwashed, right? Talk about being indoctrinated. Talk about
Seriously.
being disciplined.
Who does that? Like, so like, you did what? I'm like, it's a drip pan. What's a drip pan? Like, I gotta explain it to you. But you were so scared shitless at that point that they would end your life if you didn't do that. And that's kind of the mentality you need to be able to go in and screw shit up in these areas of the world where bad people are at. You can't have people that are, so what's your feelings on it? How do you feel? Like, no, I'm here to fuck shit up, go home, and get drunk. That's what I'm here to do. And we can't take away that mentality, because that's what makes our country amazing, is that these people from all over the country and all over the world, for that matter, that come here can go there and do a job together and have these memories and this bond that lasts a lifetime. Because the bond of people in the military, it's completely different. As soon as you know somebody's in the military, and how many times you like see a haircut, or like they say Roger that, or they say something, and you like perk up. You're like, oh, you were, and you talk for 2-3 hours to a complete stranger. You don't do that anywhere else. Nowhere else.
Yeah, it's really cool. It is. It is. One of the things that I've really appreciated, and you just hit on it right there, is a shared vocabulary, right? Right?
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to catch somebody using military time, or somebody, saying the right kind of phrases, and you're like, there's not too many people that look at somebody and go pogue, right? It's
Yeah.
like, okay. All right, I think we know what's happening here, and it's a neat thing. Just the term "at ease" I just love it. Right, it's almost universal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just absolutely almost universal. If you could go back and live a time again in your life, in your young life, is there a time you would go back and do again? Maybe not to change, but just to relive and enjoy it, or I don't know.
Honestly, I think the first 5 or 6 years in the military, I think I would go back, because honestly, I think I go back. That's the most memories that I've had. It, like, Bragg and going into Korea, and a few others. It's just like the camaraderie, the people, the friends. Like, you live, breathe everything, and it's like weird because you don't do that anywhere else in any job. You don't eat, leave, live, and breathe everything. Like, you go out, you work all day, you do PT, then you go out and you party with those same guys or gals out there. You're drinking, maybe you're dating their best friend's girl or whatever else like that, and you're all these different things that happen, and your life revolves around each other, around like this group of people. You don't have that anywhere else. Like, you might get together with some coworkers at work now, like, yeah, let's get for drinks every now and then, but there you eat, breathe and sleep together. And it was the closest I felt to people in that mentality. And they all had the same thing. And it was always cool to just talk to somebody from wherever, and you always have like so many more experiences that like you never have anywhere else. And I look back and I'm like, you all live a boring life in comparison to some of the things like you go through, and just, just the experiences that you have, the stories you have, like always go back to that 19 to 25-year-old Adam. And I love that point in my life. While as far as like the experiences and fun, right now where I'm at, I'm happy as well too, because I'm at that point where I'm established. I've got things that I'm working on. I've got a family that I love more than anything. So I'm enjoying this experience too of what that's going to become. But I love to go back to those times, because I'll tell you right now, it was just a simpler time of anything. Like it was stressful at times, but it was just so simple. And so many good friends that to this day I still talk to. And um, it's almost like you see them and time hasn't passed. It's been like a day, and you catch up, and like you and I right now, like half hour in, you're catching up and you're crossing stories, and you just don't get that in the civilian world. And I don't think that's just an experience that you have to live to understand. And I don't think anybody else can listen to it and fully understand that. And I think it's also one of those things. I was talking about my wife earlier. We were talking about, what it takes to be strong, and, you know, what you have to go through. And I said, being strong is, you could be strong and physical and do all the push-ups and everything, but the mental strength to get through the things that life throws at you, the mental strength to do what you need to do and compartmentalize and move on. Those are the people that are truly the strongest. And to me, one of the things that I don't know about you, I despise the most is those veterans and those people that constantly talk about what they did, and they're the guys at the bar like, oh, I've got 8 confirmed kills, and I'm like, I always tell my wife, anybody that talks about that is like automatically offering that information up within 5 minutes of knowing you, probably never did it. And if they are bragging about that, they're kind of a sociopath, even if they did do it. So the way I look at it is just, it's a good time to live that, because it molded everything that I am now, and I'm very thankful for it. And I had a lot of fun, and I would definitely go back to that time. But what about yourself? Same time? Would you, or you still living
Oh,
in?
wow. So, a couple things. I think I always said if I had to live my life or live a time in my life, one of the times would be the year I spent as a Patriot First Sergeant in Korea. I took a unit that we trained up, then deployed to Korea for a year, and then deployed back. And that unit, that year, that time, I would love to do that. Of course, I would also love to go spend another couple years teaching jump master school. That would be neat. I spent a year as the NCO of the year for the 82nd Airborne Division. That was a
That's
cool year,
awesome.
right? To go travel around and give speeches and things like that. That was an interesting thing. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. Anybody that's listening, that is a huge accomplishment when you talk about the cream of the crop, and to be the NCO of the year, and also coming from ADA, where it's kind of like, when so like it's kind of like when a lot of the like a National Guard unit wins the best sniper competition or the best ranger. It's kind of that same thing. It's like you have to really set yourself apart, and that's a huge accomplishment to have done that. And didn't you help write some of the stuff for like Airborne and things like that with Jumpmaster?
Yeah, yeah. I actually, edition 5 of the ASOP, I don't know, you could probably call it the producer. I was the guy that it was me and Dan Bennett. Dan was the committee chief, and I was the deputy committee chief, or basically the special projects guy. I was the guy that handled all the stuff like that. And so I'll never forget the briefing. He laid all these folders out. He gave us all assignments, and he didn't have anything for me to do. And I was like, well, what's happening here? And Dan said, you're going to manage all this. So when They go do their edits, then they're going to give it back to you, and you're going to update it. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then that started it. And so I actually took the ASOP, the old ASOP, from its written format and digitized it and added pictures and color for the first time. And we actually produced a colorized, digitized ASOP that I put together on PC Word, back in the old days on 3.5-inch floppy disk, and I had a little disk case that I carried around and all these folders in a briefcase that, I still have the very first copy of the ASOP that came off the press. I took it to all the Black Hats and we all signed it like it was a yearbook. That was a huge project, dude. We produced a Army manual basically,
That's awesome.
Yeah. That was great times. That was great times. So thanks for the question. As we begin to close things out, I've really had a great time hanging out with you tonight. It's been great. As you think about this, I would love it if what's your son's name?
Brady.
Think about Brady when he's 16, 17, 18, fixing to join the Army. Do you have a message to Brady that you might want to tell him now in preparation for a future Brady?
I would just tell him to, one, understand, kind of the lineage he comes from and appreciate that and what it means to serve, if he wanted to serve in the military or serve a higher purpose, and understand to listen to the leaders that are there, to, take that information in, and to understand that, these are men and women that have had the experience, and to give the respect that they deserve for that, and understand that what it means to be in the military, and that it's about sacrifice, and that, his dad and his dad's dad and his whole family, we've all done it. We're all willing to do it, and what that means, and he's got to be ready to be able to do that, and he can't have any doubt. He's got to move forward and have that, keep it out of his heart. And I think that's what I would tell him. I'd be very proud, honestly, if he'd served him in the military, and whatever he chooses to do. I do hope he continues to find ways to serve his country, because I think that's one of the proudest things that I've been fortunate enough to do. And I love, for me, I'm a big history person, so I love going to the exhibits and listening to the old timers and the old paratroopers. In fact, when I got my wings, guy who jumped into Normandy pinned me and everything, and that was a really cool thing. A lot of the old guys down in Benning, and got to talk to him for hours. And at that point, I was, young, dumb, and nothing. But listen to the people that have got the experience. That's the big thing. There's a lot of great people that have a lot of experience. And I think a lot of people have a tendency to just say, you're old, or, oh, you're this. But that wealth of knowledge, you can't recreate that. And I think that's an important thing that young paratroopers and young military people and just young people in general need to appreciate, the knowledge that every generation provides them.
Well, I sure do appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. It's been fun. We've had a drink together. I finishing up mine, I think, here. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any final words before we close out? I'll give you the last word, and we'll. I'm going to play play the slideshow, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on tonight. Appreciate all the heroes, the guys and gals that are watching right now, and God bless you all, and God bless this amazing country, because it's great to have, and I'm so happy to have you being able to do this and bring a lot of the stories out there. So I do appreciate that. But it's been good to catch up with you and catch up with everybody else, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other soon.
Amen. 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 Clickety click click. There we go. Look at that young man.
Oh man, that's actually back in like 2008.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Oh, young Adam. Up, Afghanistan, Adam.
Well, I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, my girl, I'm talking about my girl, my girl.
Yeah, you got to think about coming out to Nashville with us in August.
I would love to. I haven't been to Nashville in years.
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
last time I went to Nashville, me and Hobbs, we did in 09 when I got out, we did a 30-day trip across America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he and I in the vehicle, we drove all the way across the U.S. for 30 days. We checked out all things, stopped by Burdick's place, but yeah, he and I did a whole trip. But yeah, I would love to go out there. We went to Nashville, went to Beale Street in Memphis. That was kind of cool, but I'd love to go back out there.
Oh my gosh! Well, grab Burdick up and and grab Hobbs up, and you guys come on. It'll be a blast. August 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, everybody. And the big night's going to be, of course, Friday night and Saturday night there at the hotel. So plan on coming out. Hey, I sure do appreciate it. I've had a great time with you. And bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it, brother.